everyone, and today I would like to talk to you about one of my favorite topics. So I work a lot with public education. I do a lot of documentation about what are the attacks that we are seeing, what we can learn from them. So again, I see a big part of my job is educating everyone about what we are seeing during our investigations, what we are seeing in our data. Now, the presentation before me was talking a lot about artificial intelligence. I don't speak Spanish, but even I could understand it. But there is one important thing about artificial intelligence that is important for my job, and that's kind of unusual. Most people think we use AI for like generating text and so on. Actually, there is one reason why I like to use AI, and it's that AI is very confident liars. So you will ask a question, you will get answer that like sounds, that's it. Like there is no question about it. And in reality, with a job like myself, it's really good because it tells you what public thinks about certain topic. Not necessarily if it's accurate, but what most people think. So the presentation that I'm going to briefly talk to you about actually started with ChatGPT with a simple question. Explain to me what is ransomware as a service. And I got the answer that is pretty much the standard definition of ransomware as a service, and in many ways, it's completely wrong. So what me and my team are doing quite frequently is that we are trying to address these common misconceptions, because I'm a strong believer that if we want to build effective defenses, you need to start by understanding what are we defending against. So when I'm stating that this is not really correct, let's go into more details. Let's cover what I mean by this. There are two parts that I would like to highlight from this pretty much standard definition of what we understand as a ransomware today. The first one is that it operates very similarly to legitimate software as a service. Another misconception that I see all the time is that it operates like a small business. I see this all the time. So it's generally the understanding that the users have to pay for access to use this ransomware. And this is definitely not the case. This was the case 2015, 2016, so almost 10 years ago, but we never updated our understanding. The modern ransomware as a service, and by modern, I mean the last 6 or 7 years, it's really a profit-sharing scheme. And I will explain later how does this work, where the money flow, what is the business relationship between these different entities. Now, the second thing that I would like to take from that standard definition that I also see all the time repeated is that ransomware as a service is about enabling less skilled cyber criminals to participate in cybercrime. Again, I see this frequently mentioned and frequently used as an explanation. Why do we deal with ransomware every single year? And what I hear all the time is like, hey, because it's accessible to everyone now. And that is complete misunderstanding of why we see ransomware as a bigger threat and it keeps growing. It's because ransomware is not really about like a masses of low-skilled cyber criminals. It's really about substituting or replacing generalists with specialists. So it's the whole ecosystem where each type of criminal have very specific role they do, and every year they are getting better and better at that little thing they are doing. So it's definitely not about the masses of the low-skilled people that suddenly got access to ransomware, not at all. So this is pretty much how I started working on this content. I found it interesting that the basic understanding of what ransomware is fundamentally broken. So how should we think about ransomware? What is the legitimate business that we should compare it to? And how should we try to frame it? And believe it or not, there is actually inspiration in real world for the modern ransomware as a service, and that is the gig economy business. So if you want to think about ransomware and put it in some framework that you see on a daily basis, think about companies like Uber, think about companies like Airbnb. This is really adaptation of the same business model by cybercriminals. So I followed up with ChatGPT, and I tried to ask, give me definition, give me 5 defining attributes of gig economy. What makes some business gig economy model? And the response I got is like, these 5 things are critical for gig economy. It's independent contractors, it's income variability, using online platforms, task-based payments, and flexibility. So what I'm going to do here is I will go one by one and explain how each of these applies to the criminal underground today, and where we are seeing, again, these similarities. So let's start with independent contractors. Work for yourself. With gig workers, they are independent and they can decide who they work with. Now, in ransomware as a service, we actually see a lot of different roles, but fundamentally, there are 2 that are at the core of the system. It's operators. Operators develop the ransomware code or just work with developers. They are running the infrastructure, they are running the platform. When in the media you are reading about the ransomware actors, you read about the Lockbit, Ransom Hub, Akira, all these groups, those are operators. Then we have affiliates, and affiliates are completely independent partners or contractors, and it's really important to think about them that way. Typical affiliate is your hacking expert. That is someone who is expert at penetrating the network, lateral movement, pretty much establishing access to that network. Now, when I say they are independent, that is usually the case because what they can do is that they can decide, for example, the operator that I'm working with today, he's not the best one. Operators are trying to attract multiple affiliates. That's the scalability of the model is one to many, one operator working with multiple affiliates. But nothing prevents affiliate from changing from one operator to another, or something that we are seeing more and more happening, one affiliate working with multiple operators at the same time. Now, if you are paying attention to this whole ecosystem, the last, I would say, 6 months, there have been huge changes since de facto takedown of the Lockbit. Every single month, we are seeing new ransomware group coming up. A ransomware group suddenly, from nowhere, getting to top 10. So there is a lot of shift, and many of these groups in the rules are specifically saying, we support you if you work with other groups. We are perfectly fine if you decide to work with multiple operators at the same time. So that's the part about independent contractors. The second part is about income variability. There is no guaranteed paycheck, so your income depends on what you are doing. So if we go back to 2015, 2016, almost all the ransomware attacks that we've seen were really simple. We did have affiliate. What affiliate is going to do? Send email, usually with a payload. So as soon as you got email, you clicked on attachment or the link, your machine itself that you are running is going to be encrypted. You will be asked for a few $100, maybe less than $100. Now, if your income depends on how much damage you are going to do, over the last 7 years, of course, logically what's going to happen is that you will spend more time, you will try to increase the damages that you are doing, because, again, your income is variable. So one of the common misunderstandings that I'm seeing is also the whole concept of security breaches are inevitable, definitely not the case, or the successful attacks takes only seconds or minutes. Doesn't really happen. What we are seeing with typical ransomware attack today, the attack typically takes between 2 weeks to 2 months. So again, as the affiliates were trying to increase the damages they are doing, it's also increasing the time span, how long the attack takes between initial access until the launch of encryption on the network. So let's have a look at the third one, online platforms, applications, and infrastructure. So similar to, again, gig economy, Affiliates act as their own client managers. They are trying to find work. They are trying to make sure that the whole attack is pretty much seamless. And let me take you through very typical attacks. So this represents, I would say, around 80% of the attacks that we are seeing today. We start with affiliate, and affiliate, again, is independent, anonymous, can work with multiple operators, that is going to breach victim's network. The three most typical methods that we see is credential access, so buying access from initial access broker, for example. Second one is attacking edge network devices, becoming part of the popular playbook for the last, I would say, 24 months, a little bit longer. The third one is social engineering. So when affiliate gets access to the victim, this is the moment when affiliates start talking to operator. Start saying, I have this victim, here are all the details. Here is the name of the victim, industry, annual revenue, cyber insurance policies. Basic information that is going to tell operator, do I want to work with this affiliate? Is this big target or not? If they agree, operator is going to provide unique encryption key to affiliate, and you are really going to see this victim is registered as a customer, getting unique ID. The whole operation essentially starts at this moment. Now, affiliate is going to proceed with establishing persistence, getting privileges, lateral movement, preparing for the attack itself, testing the attack. This is when I was saying before, on the average, these attacks takes between 2 weeks to 2 months. That is the period when affiliate is working on this account. Now, finally, affiliate will decide to launch the attack. The data exfiltration happens as they go over the network. There is usually not one moment when they just send the data out, but there is typically one moment, let's say, in 2 to 4 hours when they encrypt all the machines. Now, here is thing that a lot of people are not aware of. This is the moment when affiliate disappears, because it's going to be the operator that will reach out to victim, and victim is discussing with operator, negotiates with the operator. There are groups like Logbit that use different rules, but again, you can find exceptions for almost everything. We are just trying to cover the most typical, pretty much playbook that we are seeing. So if operator and victim can actually agree on the conditions, how they are going to proceed with the ransom, here is the final step for the victim. Victim pays the ransom, hopefully gets the decryption key from the operator, and that is the moment when this is over for victim. But in reality, there is one really critical step that is missing from this flow, and that is the operator is going to forward money to affiliate that was responsible for this attack. So if you have a look at this, again, this represents about 80% of the cases that we are seeing today. If you look at this flow of the attack, what is important to understand is look at the money flow that we are seeing here. If you think how Uber operates, how Airbnb operates, it's essentially the same money. It's the victim paying to platform and platform paying to worker that have provided services. So the money flow, exactly identical here. Now, a really important thing that I want you to remember from this is affiliate is someone who is doing majority of the work, but at the critical moment when the attack is launched, they disappear. So that's why what we are really seeing, again, in media reporting, everything else, is the name of operator that is just the platform and is actually not behind these attacks. So when I was talking about this relationship, this is really important because it's very transactional relationship. They are not part of the same company. There are really well-defined tasks that are happening in this ecosystem, and each task has assigned percentage or a fee that is going to be paid. So initially, this is something that we've seen a couple of years ago, is all the operators are trying to attract best affiliates or biggest amount of affiliates. And what they are going to do, of course, is that they are going to attract them by offering the best possible ransomware on the market. So in the past, we've seen a lot of essentially what are marketing campaigns saying, my ransomware is better than this ransomware. Here are the graphs comparing how long it takes to encrypt this data versus all other competitors on the market. But with modern ransomware that is much more mature than it was 5, 6 years ago, what we are really seeing now is that all these operators are mostly competing by the portfolio of affiliates they have, that's number one, and second, by the percentage of the ransom payment that they are sharing with affiliates. So if you are wondering what is that percentage, because again, if we talk about business model, that is critical to understand how the money flow and where. Today, averages are roughly around 75, roughly somewhere between 75 to 90% of the ransom is staying with affiliates. So let me really summarize it here. All you see in media, all you see in reporting are operators. Operator is someone who is not involved in these attacks. That's affiliate. And operator keeps on the average 10 to 15% of the ransom. The people that really benefit from these attacks and are responsible for these attacks are mostly renaming anonymous. Companies like, for example, Bitdefender, we do a lot of clustering, so we know who they are, but again, they don't have name, they have identifiers because we see behavior, we see how they can move between different ransomware groups, between different operators. But essentially, again, we are all focused on operators that are not really at the core of the problem that we are dealing with. So let's move on to final part, which is something that people that work in gig economy like the most, and that is the flexibility that you have, because with gig economy, you can choose, is this going to be just a side hustle for some extra money that I want to earn, or do I want to do this as a full-time career path for me? And we see this flexibility in this whole ecosystem a lot. So when I go back to the attack that I was describing, this is the most typical one, the victim here can be anything. It can be a company that is very small with few computers. It can be a huge corporation. It can be any size. It can be any industry. Everyone pretty much that is sitting in this room, there are some affiliates that are specialized in your company size or that are specialized in your industry or geographical location where you are based. So the final words here about the flexibility, something that we see happening more and more. There is a lot of talks about supply chain attacks. Pretty much every single time when somebody brings it up, it always ends up discussion about the software supply chain, software upstream supply chain attack, where some updates are compromised. In reality, something that we see happening every single day and is not talked enough about is the compromise of supply chain, which is soft. There is no software involved, there is no malware. It's only about looking at the business connections that you have. So what we are seeing a lot in terms of flexibility is affiliate that compromises SMB, small company. What they are going to look first is there sensitive data? Is it healthcare, for example? Is it any legal office? If not, do they have enough computers? Is it manufacturing? And if not, the third thing they are looking for are business connections. Because very often, if not most of the attacks that we are investigating, we actually see the attack coming from one of the compromised partners. So what you are going to see happening a lot is the company has been compromised through SMB, through subcontractor, to much smaller company that is connected to this. This is happening on a daily basis. And how is this related to flexibility? Very often the first initial affiliate is someone else who's going to lead with a follow-up attack. So what's happening in these cases is that the smaller affiliate that is not expert at big companies is just going to sell access to someone else. So again, there is a lot of dealing, handling between these groups. So in conclusion, these are the 5 defining factors of gig economy. We see every single one of them in the modern ransomware as a service. Are there any weaknesses that we are seeing in this ecosystem? Because the question that I have like follow up very often is there anything we can do? Yes, definitely is. So the biggest weakness in this whole ecosystem is the trust between these different personas. Again, if you take as an example Uber, is Uber going to work if Uber stops paying the drivers or the drivers stop coming for the customers? Like the whole ecosystem is going to collapse. Here we have the same. So anything we can do as companies, as society, law enforcement agencies to break this trust between these personas is going to have huge ripples in the whole ecosystem. 2 examples that I would like to mention here is ransomware decryptors. So we developed 33 ransomware decryptors over the last few years. My recommendation anytime someone says we are under attack, start by checking nomoreransom.org. You upload one sample file, it's going to tell you there is free decryptor that you can use to get access to your files or not. What you have to understand is that there are 2 purposes why we have these decryptors. The first one, of course, we return data back to victim, big deal. Another one that is often not so visible is every time the decryptor is released, it's causing huge issues in this ecosystem. We never say how we developed the decryptor. So what's going to happen is affiliates will start blaming operators, saying your code quality is terrible, you have problem with your operations, law enforcement got inside your operation, that's how they got it. They start guessing, they start blaming each other. Operators will immediately start saying back, the victims would not pay you anyway, so there are no real damages. And as you can imagine, we've seen some ransomware groups that pretty much collapse from inside after the ransomware has been released. If you are wondering how much damages we are talking about, we do have pretty good idea about the decryptors released by Bitdefender. So we know that we prevented around $1.6 billion in payments from victims thanks to these decryptors. The problem with them is that it's getting harder and harder to develop them. So there is another thing that we can definitely do, and that is takedowns of these ransomware groups, of these ransomware operations. So the public-private collaboration on taking down affiliates or operators, ideally both, is a huge deal. So I'm, for example, a huge fan of what the Operation Kronos, the team, have done. When they took down the Logbit, they didn't just shut down the operation, they actually kept the whole ransomware portal as is. They just changed the content saying, in 48 hours, we are going to reveal who's running this ransomware operation. So what you are seeing here, this used to be the ransomware portal, and the law enforcement agencies pretty much just started trolling the bad actors. But there was more than they've done that's highly effective. So for example, any affiliate from Logbit that would sign into the portal would be personally welcomed by message from law enforcement. So this kind of psyops, psychological warfare, is incredibly important. I'm also a big fan, for example, of doxing some of these ransomware operators. So if you know operator resides in a country that doesn't cooperate with international law enforcement, what can you do? There is not much. Surprisingly, one of really effective tactics is you just make them public. You just say, hey, this is the name, this is the address, this is net worth. We cannot do anything, but hey, we just publish it and see what happens next. So this public-private collaboration is definitely huge. This is the way how we can bring down big elements of this ransomware ecosystem. And again, 2024 was one of the best years in terms of like the takedowns that we've seen. And we are seeing it in our data all the time when the last few months, the whole ransomware ecosystem is pretty much, I cannot say unfortunately collapsing, but it is definitely going through a lot of changes, and any change is good for us because it brings us opportunity to find out more ways how to get into this ecosystem. So with that, I hope this was interesting for you. Thank you very much for your attention. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Muchas gracias, Martin. Ha sido muy interesante tu presentación. Could you recommend us a final advice for the next year?
Keep looking for how the playbook changes. So something that we do, again, we do a lot of investigations. Mm-hmm. Every single time when we do investigation, we are looking for what is different this time. And very often when we see something, the next step is this an isolated case or is it a part of the playbook? Mm-hmm. And then what we start seeing is other ransomware groups starting doing the same thing, and we are saying, hey, this is the playbook of the whole ransomware ecosystem. So pay attention for those, because something that I see all the time is the whole cat and mouse game. It's not as much about technology, it's about knowing what cyber criminals are doing.
That's right. Thank you very much. Enjoy Spain, and I will wish you a great success in the rest of the world. Un último aplauso, por favor, para él, por la presentación.